Damas y caballeros, chicos y chicas, niños de todas las edades, bienvenidos al Blur Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon, con el pensamiento correcto de un cerebro izquierdo, haciendo el trabajo que los American Media Maggots no hacen, operando detrás de las líneas enemigas de la California ocupada, en vivo y en directo, desde Estudio 23, de la vasta, rica, voluminosa y detestable SHR Media Network. Aquí está la mayor decepción de SHR, el Zeppelin Bloviating.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass.
That's funny.
Out of bubble.
I paid to have that done. Oh my God. He did a great job. What a great job. I guess that means that I'm easily entertained, right? Because I'm laughing at my own intro. Wait a minute, that was supposed to be serious stuff. Sometimes me attempting to be clever just makes me laugh. That's one of those occasions. You know, I really shouldn't laugh at my own material. It's just kind of poor, don't you think? Poor form. I still think it's really funny. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. It's Thursday, August 17th, the year of our Lord 2017, and that means that it's the aftermath on Thursday that customarily occurs tonight. And it's quantified as all the shite that I couldn't fit into the Tuesday show. All the sackheads wouldn't allow me to talk about on Wednesday, those oppressive bastards. But no, they're always right. Well, they get to be always right. They own the media network. I just have an outlandish contract. That's all. That's the only difference. Tonight, we've got two good guests for you. Great guests for you. As with any other Thursday, we've got the underground professor, Dr. Michael Jones, on tonight. Unfortunately, he didn't send me anything back, so I hope he knows that he's on tonight. If we get a phone call very soon, we'll know. And in any event, I know that I want to be talking about the First Amendment. But before we talk about the First Amendment, I have to tell you that you need to belly up to the bar right now. And we've kept your seat, just like we've kept Mary Brockman's seat. You can always tell her chair. It's the one with the embroidery on the back. Speaking of back, it's great to see you back. Snowball. A little different. Snowball is going to be your bartendress tonight. She pours with the best of them. And, of course, you can see the lava lamp is indeed lighted. To my left, your right, in the frame. Oh, the frame. That's right. You can hear us on shrmedia.com. You can go to Spreaker.com. You can go to the HP High Plains Pundit Media Network and listen. And if you want to watch what's going on live, go to the SHR Media YouTube channel. And you can watch what's happening live and direct in the studio. Well, it's Studio A or Studio 22. I'm not sure what happens. How that goes about. All I know is I open that door right over there. You can't see it. And I walk in and set everything up. But I have to tell you this. We don't water our drinks. Just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. And unlike Jersey Joe, sorry Joe, the drinks are not double. I think he was trying to hint that the drinks are double or perhaps even more. Sad. Very sad. We only ask one thing, and I've cleaned things up. The women's restroom is really nice, open for business right now. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the damn handle. The water bill's been going up, and especially in California, holy mother of God, do we pay for water around here. Don't forget to tip your waitress. Yeah. Well, Mary Brockman is in chat tonight, along with myself. It's going to be a thin crowd, apparently. Nevertheless, we've got a lot of good stuff to come. It's beginning to appear as though the underground professor may be absent tonight, but that's okay, because at the bottom of the hour, we have Melanie Collette, who's going to be calling in for two reasons. Number one, if you're not listening to Money Talk with Melanie here on SHR and also on High Plains Pundit Radio, and I believe she's also available on Spreaker, she may be also available on iTunes. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to ask her again when she appears tonight. We're going to talk to her about two diverse things, but one of them immediately is going to deal with Charlottesville, because I'm curious what she thinks about Charlottesville. Now, it's no secret that Melanie is a black female, and she's sharp as hell, which is why she talks about finances, and I do not. I don't have, my brain is absolutely unwired for that kind of thing. Her brain is all wired in for it. Oh, wait, hang on one second. Don't go away, folks. I think we've got somebody calling in already, and I think that might be the underground professor, Dr. Michael Jones.
Hello.
Welcome to you, sir.
Well, I'm happy I'm me.
I'm happy you're you, too. Hey, I got a question for you. Did you have a show earlier this week?
Last Thursday I did.
Last Thursday, okay.
Yeah. All
right, just wanted to quantify, because, of course, if you did have a show this week, I wanted to let people know where they could go to listen to your stuff. As a matter of fact, you did a show last week. I saw some of it. Can you tell folks where they can go to find you? Because I think you broadcast on Periscope, do you not?
Yeah, that's probably the best place to go right now, because I think Blog Talk's screwing up my audio. It sounds like there's no audio on it. I have to look into that, but I've gotten a lot of complaints. So right now, the best place to find my shows are on Periscope, and that is at Underground Prof, Prof.
Okay, there you go, folks.
Yeah.
And again, if I'm not mistaken, you primarily speak about all things constitutional on that show. Or do you kind of scatter around a bit, do you?
Yeah, it's kind of a stream of consciousness sometimes.
Okay, all right.
I do talk a lot about original intent, the founding of the country. I bring up a lot of history that people don't know. For example, to give you an idea, I try to correct history. I'm a revisionist. It's not that I make it the way I want it to be. I'm just correcting it from the mythologies that are taught in schools today. Everybody knows you're supposed to hate those little lawn jockeys. Remember the little black lawn jockeys?
Certainly.
With red coats holding the lantern?
You bet.
Right. Well, that's racist. No one can have that. In fact, if you find them today, they almost always have the faces painted white.
I've seen exactly.
And
you got it.
Yeah. I find that racist and repugnant, because the true story of that is on Christmas Eve. I usually tell the story on my show Christmas Eve or around there. Remember when Washington took the troops and marched to Trenton to get the Hessians?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there was a little black slave boy named George that wanted to go, and George Washington was afraid he would be injured and did not want to risk him getting hurt. So he, you know how like when you leave and you tell your son you're in charge of mom, you know, protecting the house and everything, you know, and they feel all important.
Right.
It's how you teach them to grow up to be a man. Well, Washington told this little boy, he says, this is very important. We'll need to find our way back from our mission. And so we need you to sit here with the light. And when we come back, hold the lantern up so we know where to go. And he figured, okay, I've given this guy some busy work, but he'll feel important. He won't feel like he's just being cut and left behind because he's, you know, useless. And then they all took off and had the big victory. When they came back, he was standing on the edge of the water line, holding the lantern, frozen to death.
Oh, my God.
And
no one knows that story.
When the word got out, everybody that had money went out and had lawn jocks made to honor this kid's sacrifice for the cause, for our freedom. And of course, they're painted black because he was black. And so they're all named George. and they have nothing to do with racehorses, but the Racehorse Association, which was a big deal, they adopted that symbol to honor this kid's sacrifice, too. And so this is the true story behind that lawn jockey. And yet today, the history's lost. And if you have one to honor it, you're considered a racist. And that story's been in my mind all day as I've been watching revisionists trying to tear down our country's history and rewrite it, or to make it invisible so that we don't know it anymore.
No, that's absolutely true.
And so I do a lot of that on my show. Stories like that, like the true story of Thanksgiving, I'll do every year at Thanksgiving, which is, of course, it had nothing to do with the Indians per se. It had mostly to do with the fact that we ended communism in America and adopted capitalism. And so I explained that statement, of course, because those words were not in use at the time. But, so that's the kind of things that I like to do. I like to pop little trivia like that and make you go, huh. It's not what I thought it was.
Well,
and
with that story, I had never heard that before.
Current events too. Go ahead.
I swear to God, I have never heard that story before. I simply, in my historical ignorance associated with someone decided it would be cool to put a jockey, a black young boy on, cast him in metal, and it went on the end of driveways. That's all I thought.
Right. Yep. And that's all we know of it today. And you'd be surprised how many people hear the story and they still don't believe it. It's searchable. You can find it, but we don't teach things like that because there's an agenda to history, and they want black people to feel separated from the founding of this country. They have no stake in it, and this is why you see they're wanting to tear down memorials to George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Hello, they would all still be slaves today if George Washington had not become president of the country that eventually led to the end of slavery. Wilberforce had ended it in England, but it had not completely caught on over here. And it was something that man has done ever since there were more than two men. And one could subjugate the other. And slavery had been legal and vogue, and every race, every color, every creed, every sex has been enslaved over some part of time. And we just happen to have made it colorful because it was easier to recognize a black slave in an all-white country. And Indians were too damn hard to keep slaves because they could just disappear into the wildlands and be gone.
Well, you mentioned the Indians. The Indians themselves kept slaves. The Cherokee,
yes, they did.
The Cherokee were known to keep slaves under terrible oppressive conditions. And I've always said this about the Indians as well. And I know this is true because this is the nature of man. Trust me. I've said if the American Plains Indian had his Bronze Age and Industrial Age ahead of Europe, they would have found a way to cross that big pond and conquer Europe. It would have happened. They would have gone to another continent to do exactly that. That's the nature of man.
You should call Harry Turtledove up and tell him, hey, this is a good idea for one of your books for alternate histories.
That'd
be a great idea.
You may not know that I know who that is, but yes, I do know who that is. There's another interesting author that you might be interested in, Dr. Jones, named Robert Conroy, who writes also historical books. He's written 1942, 1945, and again, it's alternate history. For example, what would have happened in 1945. Oh, and there's another one about the Russians. He posts, for example, what would have happened had we not bombed Japan, or Japan not surrendered, and we had attempted to invade homeland Japan. He's another great author about that.
Well, there'd be a lot of us not alive today.
Oh, hell. They did estimates. There was a book that I read where they did estimates, and it was expected that over 1 million people would die in an attempted landing on the shores of Japan.
That's true.
A terrible thing.
And even though I like to point out that the Democrat Party is not only the party of slavery, but the only party to ever actually have nuked innocent women and children. But I don't completely disagree with the decision because it saved a lot of American lives.
Well, it did. You know, the story that you were talking about that young black boy, I think that denigrates his service because of this. And in a way, to not talk about that story is racist. And I say it for this reason. Let's say, for example, it was reversed, and you had, let's say it's World War II, and you had a little French boy, and the Americans, he wanted to help, and the Americans said, and it's winter, the Americans said, no, son, you can't go with us, but you have to stay here. However, your job is to hold this lantern because when we approach again back, we need a way to see our way back to help and to assistance. And they come back, and that young French boy is frozen. That story would have been told. We would know that story today.
Oh, yeah. There'd have been 15 movies in Hollywood made about it.
We know. So again, people think that story is evil or they don't believe it, and we need to remove the representation of that story from everyone else because of rampant, incredible historical ignorance. That's what I call the reversal theory. What would happen if the reverse were true? My first question for you tonight, is the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights in jeopardy? That's a rather wide question, but I'm curious.
Well, my long answer is yes. It's been in jeopardy. But to be honest here now, without being flippant, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights have basically been in jeopardy since their inception. You know, they were attacked by the Anti-Federalists, and they were, while they were trying to get it proposed and ratified, and and then they've been attacked ever since. I mean, look at what Wilson and Roosevelt and them did to it, and it's still going on today. And yeah, I think that we're in big trouble right now. I used to think that whatever happens, that we would be able to survive this, educate, and grow out of it. But with this mania that I'm watching, Occupy Wall Street and Antifa and Black Lives Matter and stuff, I've actually started to worry that we're not going to be able to get where we may not survive this because of the colossal ignorance that's out there, the hate, and the fact that the media is doing what it's doing over in Europe with the Muslims, just lying about stuff. I mean, you have CNN anchors coming out and saying that Trump is lying that the Antifa was violent, even though they showed up with bats and Coke cans full of cement and balloons full of crap and urine.
You can go to YouTube and watch the videos time and again.
Right. But the idiots that tune into CNN, and there aren't many of them, thank God, because they have some of the worst ratings. Our shows get better ratings than CNN. But they believe this stuff. I mean, I have people at work that laughed and thought I was the biggest idiot in the world for saying that Trump was right, that both sides had good people and both sides had bad people, and that they both committed violence, and they both should be punished. Yeah, but you're only supposed to castigate white people now. You can't point out that the black people are violent, or Mexicans are violent, or anybody. I mean, we're men and women. We're mankind, and mankind is inherently violent. And the problem is we live in a civilized society where we have a social construct that we agreed to abide by, which is the rule of law. And one side seems to be above it and is being protected by the media, which was integral to the Founding Fathers as a balancing factor against power. And sadly, I think there are two forces right now colliding that are not colliding, but are colluding. And that is the communist factor. I hate to say that word now because it's not in vogue anymore, but we blamed everything on communism when I was a kid. But the communists, Khrushchev, Lenin, those guys, they said that they would win without firing a shot by corrupting us with our own rules and our own conduct here in America, and that we would vote in. Lincoln and others, many others, have said that the way that this country will be destroyed is by voting in liberalism, a little bit at a time. And we'll call it liberalism, but it is communism, socialism. And I think the other colluding factor is, of course, they want the demise of freedom and America. The other side is the Muslim. And I think Islam believes that it is going to be superior and run everything on this planet and won't be happy till it's destroyed everything in the name of Allah. And I think that they are willingly colluding with the communist factor. And the two of them are doing everything they can. And they both have the same goals. If you look at the Communist Manifesto and you look at what Islam does, they destroy your veneration of your founders. They destroy the rule of law. They destroy religion. And that's exactly what we see right now in our country. Is we don't venerate our founding fathers, i.e. look at the call for the destruction of monuments to Washington, of all people, the indispensable man, the man with the most integrity in this country. Thomas Jefferson, they want to tear his memorial down. He's the guy who gave us the Declaration of Independence and the concept that all men are created equal. And lest we forget how important that is, Abraham Lincoln cited it over and over and over, the Declaration of Independence, and said that it perhaps was more important than the Constitution itself. And he used the Declaration of Independence and the thoughts of Thomas Jefferson to justify the Union's war of northern aggression. And of course, that ended slavery in this country. So I again say, Thomas Jefferson may have been a slave owner, but it was legal at the time. Can you imagine what's going to happen in 50 years when people start tearing down everything when they find out somebody was a cigarette smoker? I mean, look how the smoking Nazis are today.
Or they drove.
We're going to find people.
They drove a car that has an internal combustion engine. It's the same thing. It's the same insanity on the left. Folks, we're speaking to the underground professor, Dr. Michael Jones, here on the SHR Media Network on the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You mentioned, Dr. Jones, something very interesting historically. FDR, clearly a Democrat, abrogated the U.S. Constitution. A lot of people don't know how he offended the Constitution. Can you tell us about that?
How he offended it?
Well, how he helped to just set it aside.
Yeah, he mostly ignored it. He tried to introduce a new Bill of Rights or a second Bill of Rights, with stupid things like you have a right to a good job and you have a right to a house and medical care and all that garbage that we keep seeing resurfacing today. And he tried to undermine the rule of law by making government be more important in your life than anything else, that you would turn to government for everything. And, price wages, freezes, paying farmers not to grow food, punishing them if they did, even if they grew food for themselves.
Staples of today's world.
They were punishing. Yeah. So it was just horrendous. And the other Roosevelt wasn't any better with and I think he was worse, actually, because the Republican Roosevelt grabbed so much of this country's land and gave it to the central government.
Ah, yes.
They just took it. Now, we might like our national parks, but I'm sorry, the central government has no business owning land, and the Founding Fathers never intended the central government to own any more land than a little tiny square, acre in every city. And that was, where the central, where the government offices would be and a school would be put. And that's what they reserved. Every land grant they gave, had, if you go and look at the Northwest Ordinance, which is probably the most beautiful of all the founding documents, it's just a couple of pages, and yet it gave 90% of the land out to the people. I mean, think about all that land and how it did it, and it did it without costing people an arm and a leg, and people had a stake in this country, and we developed as we moved west, and this caused America to become one of the powerhouses of the planet. And I'm terribly worried about all this stuff right now.
Okay, we got 4 minutes to the bottom of the hour, and I want to ask you this one final question, because this was asked by Mary Brockman, who happens to be in the chat room. And she said, Jefferson and Washington wanted to free their slaves, but King George forbade it. What about that?
Yes, well, there was a time when manumission was illegal. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and many others were calling for, Benjamin Franklin was probably the loudest about that. And they were out there saying, let's start treating these people like humans. And they realized the contradiction. Well, King George did pass an edict that said you could not free your slaves because he was afraid of the economic turmoil that would cause, and he thought that the people couldn't pay their debts back to England. All these companies that set up charters and people borrowed money and came over here, and they were supposed to pay back, and they were afraid that if we got rid of slavery that we wouldn't be able to do it. So there's an economic drive to this, mostly. It wasn't the fact that they thought, hey, you can't free slaves, but more to the point that there was an economic implication. Plus, let's not forget that the very first trial in America over slavery, and whether it was legal or not, a black man had a black indentured servant who was lazy, didn't pay his debts back, and kept running away. So the first black man caught his indentured servant, who came over to America and had his way paid by the first black guy, and was supposed to work for 7 years to pay off his debt and then be free to do whatever he wanted. Well, he kept running away, so they caught him, took him to court. Now, this wasn't a United States court; this was a British court, but it was America.
Yes,
and in there, the courts ruled that this man could, in fact, be a slave for not paying his debts. And so the very first court action in America over whether slavery was legal and justifiable was a black man enslaving another black man. That's another one of those little facts and stories you don't get told in school anymore. And that gave birth to the stare decisis of slavery being legal, all the way up to the Dred Scott decision and everything like that. But yes, it was not permissible to get rid of slaves for a while. Of course, when we became a country, we could do it. Washington had most of his slaves freed, if I remember right, and through his will. Jefferson wanted to, but he became so destitute after being president, and all the entertaining he did, all the books he bought and everything, he became broke. And in fact, the Congressional Library was started because I think it was Adams, but somebody went up there and to help out Jefferson, they bought all his books. He had some 3,000 books at a time where, books were like $50.
Wow.
So they were very expensive, very hard to print. It was not a cheap thing. So they paid a substantial sum to Jefferson to purchase all of his books and created the Congressional Library from that.
Folks, we're listening to the Underground Professor. He's going to be back next Thursday, I hope, with crossed fingers. But I want to ask you this in advance. I found a particular article from Imprimus, which is a publication of Hillsdale College. It's free. You can get it. There's an article that was written called The Left's War on Free Speech. I'm probably going to end up reading that article on Thursday, and I want to talk to you about free speech in general next Thursday. So either a half hour hour, whatever it takes. I really want to hear your input about the First Amendment and free speech. And folks, that's it. We got to go to a break. Again, Dr. Michael Jones, thank you ever so kindly for being here in the saloon. And folks, don't go away. Come right back, because we are next going to speak to Melanie Collette of Money Talk with Melanie. We're going to talk about two very disparate topics, but I want to hear her thoughts about both of them. I think it's incredibly important. Folks, come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show on the SHR Media Network, also on the High Plains Pundit Radio Network, and you can watch me live on YouTube on the SHR Media Network subscription channel on YouTube. They have their own channel on YouTube. We were listening to the Underground Professor, and he was talking to us about all things constitutional. One of the things that I'd asked him prior was, are we in some kind of jeopardy now with regard to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights? His answer was, initially no, now perhaps yes. And with that in mind, we have a second guest who has called in tonight, and it's the two questions. Basically, I only have two questions for her tonight, and I should do a little intro because this is somebody that I really respect. We're talking to Melanie Collette now, who's called in. She has her own show on SHR, and it's called Money Talk with Melanie. And it's no surprise that she is a highly educated, highly intelligent black woman who has her own show and is infinitely more intelligent about stuff fiscal than I am. You can hand me a number here and hand me a number there, and I could put them together and get 1 and 1 equals 117. Okay, here's a great comparison. I am to budget and the fiscal world as Sackhead's Clint is to technology. I think I can make it no more plain than that. And if you listen to the Sackheads radio show, I think you know exactly of what I speak with regard to Sackhead's Clint. However, that said,
I think that I do.
Is that a crazy intro or not? Because I think it's accurate. I'm a jerk.
I think that was plenty, BB. You're making me laugh, and that's good because I had a rather trying day. So,
well, good. It's good to laugh.
It's
good to laugh. And like all folks that come from the East Coast, I had a gentleman on, an author up in New York City, and he called in, and I don't know how to record people early to broadcast later. I'm going to have to find out because I've got another author coming who can't speak at night. But I acknowledged him, and I always want to acknowledge you because I think you're in New Jersey. You're way the hell over on the right coast, and it's late as hell, and you're staying up late for me. So right off the bat, Melanie, I have to say thank you ever so kindly for coming in because a lot of people need their sleep, and I'm sure you're one of them.
Well, you're welcome. And well, here's the thing. You want to hear something funny? So I'm a night auditor at a hotel.
Oh, okay.
And you're not the only one who. Was originally my night off, but you're not the only one who apparently needed my services this evening. So I am at work.
Oh, okay. Well, then
so
I owe you a double thank you.
Yeah. So when my boss asked me, I was like, "Yeah, I can, as long as you don't mind me being on the radio for a little bit of the time that I'm here."
Well, thanks for being on late, and thanks for being on at work.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Why not? Absolutely, no problem.
I had two questions. Actually, I had contacted you earlier, about a week ago or so, and I said, hey, I would really be curious what your thoughts are with regard to a cashless society. And you said, okay, yeah, we can chat about that. No big deal. Because obviously I have some concerns and some fears about that, and I think you're probably going to blow it up. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy, do I have some.
Why?
Oh,
Why?
I have some mega concerns about that. But swear to God, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
And again, that's why I want your input on this. But in the meantime, all this crap happened in Charlottesville over the weekend.
True.
So,
True. Yeah.
The other thing that I thought, okay, I really want to talk to Melanie about this because when you were in the chat room, I think it was last night, during Sackheads, you'd said something about there's concern for perspective in terms of Trump, and what he's saying lacks perspective, and it's open for interpretation. I don't know if I'm accurately quoting you or not, but I thought, okay, that needs to be talked about.
Right. Well, and what I said was it's a matter of perception.
Perception.
And that
Bingo.
That's it. And that the perception is cumulative, is what I said.
Yep.
And what I meant by that was, and I think me and the Unpleasant Blind guy, Dave Milner, were having this exchange, and because Dave Milner had mentioned that, it's a matter of people not being informed and et cetera, and that the public, needed to know certain things. And my argument to him was, well, since we are aware of the things that the public does not know, isn't it incumbent upon us, i.e. the president, to speak to the audience that he is given? In other words, just because he knows, and he knows that his audience is not aware, he needs to speak to the audience that he has. And my point was, it's a matter of perspective. And part of his problem, in my view, is that he's not speaking to the audience that he has. He's speaking to the audience that he thinks should be. And that's the problem.
I have to say, I think that's a rather insightful point. That's a rather measured statement. Now, you're on the East,
and it's been my problem all along with Donald Trump since the election cycle. It's been my problem, and the argument from supporters has been, well, he's not going to change. He's a 70-year-old businessman, and we know he's not a racist, and if people just did their research. Well, people don't do their research. B, they're subject to the mainstream media. I mean, I could go on and on with all the reasons why we know that he needs to be responsible for his own message, and he needs to deal with the audience that he has. Just because it's him does not change his responsibilities as president as far as his messaging is concerned. And that's my fundamental problem with supporting him. And as you know, I'm a supporter of his, but he's got a major flaw in his messaging. And people seem to want to excuse that because he is who he is. And my argument is, okay, but now he's president, so he needs to change.
All things have to change. And people say, well, you're right. You make up the excellent point, the fact that, okay, he got elected because he's not a politician. On the other hand, he's going to have to learn quickly, because if you don't possess some kind of acumen with regard to politics, you're going to get smashed, plain and simple. And he was not my first guy, the guy with the dead orange cat on the top of his head. I had some other people that I was interested in, and eventually it came down to him, mostly for me because it wasn't Hillary Clinton, mostly because I thought that he would make a good SCOTUS pick. He has at least one, and I think he's probably going to end up getting two more before the end of, at the beginning of 2020, for example. But that said,
yeah,
you can say that... I used to say this of Obama, and I think I'm going to have to say this of Trump as well. These are instances where, dude, you're tone deaf. Open your ears, and you have to listen a little bit. And it's like Marshall McLuhan. It's like the medium is the message. You may have a great message, but now you're in a different position where you have to become the messenger as well. Is that somewhat accurate?
It is. And here's the other thing, BC. I mean, let's keep it 100% real here.
Yeah,
when we think about how he got elected, with what you just said, and I tend to agree, a large part of why he got elected was because he wasn't Hillary. Here's another fact. Statistically speaking, most Republicans voted against him. So to say that he's some, favorite representative of the party is a false narrative in and of itself. He is now because he's the representative in the White House. But from the word go, when we had 17 primary candidates, he certainly was not.
Well, no.
I mean, that's just a fact.
Well, it is a fact. He was not the glory child of what I call the establishacks, which are the establishment hack GOP base, like McCain, McConnell, the people that you're going to have to put, a brick of C4 under their seats before you can get them out. Otherwise, you're not going to get them out. They're going to stay there in perpetuity or until they cack from the factory-issued heart attack.
That's right. And BC, if it wasn't for two things, if it wasn't for Hillary and if it wasn't for SCOTUS, he doesn't get elected. I'm sorry.
I had to come down, I don't know, maybe this was what you were thinking too. I had to come down to those two fundamental elements. And that's why
because
I went...
I think we stay home. I think Republicans stay home if it's not for SCOTUS and if it's not for the fact that it meant that Hillary would be president. If it wasn't for the fact that what it meant, what it really would mean, I think like the alternative was just so hard.
The alternative
that we had to stop it. It had to be stopped.
There was no alternative. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of stuff that I like Trump doing. I wish, however, that he would listen to some of the people that are attempting to point him and guide the way, because he's pretty effective right now, despite all the forces that are arrayed against him. But my God, think of what would the work he could accomplish if he could learn to steamroller people politically instead of doing it his way. Now, Mary Brockman in chat says, if you want Trump to be PC, it'll never happen. True, given. But also, he has to be of the mindset that he can learn from his mistakes and at the same time surround himself with people that are providing him good input. I wish I could be confident that he was listening to the right people. For example, and Melanie, I'd like to have your opinion on this. I think Jared Kushner, and I think Melania, or I'm sorry, Ivanka. Who's the wife of Jared? Is it Ivanka?
That's Ivanka.
Okay.
That's Ivanka.
I think that Ivanka and Jared Kushner are sitting on his shoulder, and they're saying essentially, Donald, hard aport, sir. And some other people are sitting on his other shoulder and saying some other things. Any thought about that?
Here's the thing. It's nothing personal against them, but I think they need to go just because the optics are bad. The political optics are bad. And this is another situation where, it's not, there's nothing wrong with it. Listen, it's like the Apostle Paul said, all things that are lawful are not advantageous. Sure, you can do it legally, but it's not a good idea. You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean.
But not a great idea. So, and listen, I think I'm not taking anything away from either of their talents, either of their capabilities, but politically, it's a bad look. It just doesn't look right. It doesn't look good, and ultimately, what that means is that it's not good for the republic, in my opinion. I just don't think it's good.
I'll take you and go one better.
It lends to other bad things.
I wouldn't disagree with that, and I'll go you one better. I don't particularly care for their politics, and that would be my final base. The aspects, the perspective,
absolutely.
Yeah, the perspective is not good, but moreover, with me, because I'm more politically driven, I don't particularly want him to be listening to his family. I want him to be listening to the professionals. Well, let's stop. Let's back up just for a second, because one of the reasons that I called you is for sort of a big overarching view of what occurred in Charlottesville. And it's like one of those things where, okay, crikey, BZ, where do you want me to start? I don't know, Melanie. Just pick it up and run with it, because you must have had some initial thoughts about that besides the first thought, what the hell?
Well, I'm going to tell you. I first of all, my number one thought is I could give a rat's rear about those statues. They're inanimate objects sitting there doing inanimate things. I don't care. And like I posted on Facebook today, to me, it's like it's a statue. You walk by and say, "Wow, slavery sucks. Let's make sure we don't do that again." And then I keep it pushing.
Yeah.
I can't. I have other things to do, or as my good friend Lonnie Poindexter says, bigger fish to fry. So, listen, I don't believe that it's a good idea to sanitize history. Somebody else posted on Facebook today, if we get rid of all the history, what will happen? And I said, that's a great idea. So in 200 years, when somebody says, you know what, we should start enslaving people to get some work done. And then since we've sanitized history, somebody said, oh, we've never tried that. Let's do it. You know what I mean? Because there will have been no record of the fact that we tried that and it was a huge failure.
You make an excellent example. As I want to put it, it's like somebody thinks that somehow you can pick up a turd by the clean end, when in fact no such thing exists. And sometimes things and people exist as quite valuable, instructive elements as what not to do in society. It's a part of history, and you're big enough to be able to say, you know what, move on. I got enough stuff to do in my life.
And BC, if a statue is bothering you, to me, it's bother that you are creating, because like I just mentioned earlier, it's an inanimate object. So if you're walking by a statue and allowing it to literally bother your spirit, dare I say it, you need Jesus, for real.
Well, it's what I say also about atheists. I don't care. I couldn't care less that you're an atheist. You want to be an atheist? That's fine. Keep the hell off of my flag. Keep the hell off of crosses. Go do what you want to do. Think or believe in any fashion that you wish. Leave other shite alone and move on. If you don't like it, nothing says you have to stop and ponder and look for hours at the cross that's in front of you. Move on. There's other fish to fry.
Exactly, and that's how I feel about it. I really, but now my thoughts about specifically what happened in Charlotte is, listen, now if people need to know, your listeners who are not aware, I think you did mention it in the opening that I'm a brown person, so obviously I'm not pro KKK.
Yes. I think I could grok that concept. Yes.
Yeah. But here's the thing: one group had a permit to be there, another group did not.
Wait,
so
no,
one
wait,
group
God.
was lawfully. And
Melanie, we're starting off on the wrong foot already. You are starting off on the wrong foot. God.
What, with like laws and stuff?
With stop talking about that fact, please. Stop.
With laws and whatnot, the Constitution and all that. Here's the problem: people get mixed up with, moral rightness and legal rightness. Moral rightness has nothing to do with this situation. Okay, the right for those white supremacists to be there had nothing to do with moral standing. It had everything to do with legal standing. That's what that had to do with. They had every right to be there. They had every right to speak their mind. The same rights that you want. See, here's the problem. When black people want equality, they really don't want equality. The people who think it's not okay for white supremacists to be there, they really don't want equality, because if they wanted equality, they would be okay with white supremacists being there. What they want is to be able to do what they want. See, true equality means that you're okay with everyone getting a fair shake, even if you disagree.
Darn it!
If you wanted equality, you'd have left those white supremacists alone. Let them spread their message and let people see exactly the hatefulness that it is.
Thank you.
But instead, what you did was created a distraction.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. I go back to my wife's mother. I only met her for about 2 months. She passed away about 2 months after I met her. She had pancreatic cancer.
That sucks.
I've had it 3 times. Anyway, she
wow.
passed away rapidly. But one of the things that she said to me that I'll never forget, and is a BZ axiom to this day, is some people exist on this planet only as to be examples of what not to do, be, or think. And I submit that's absolutely true. You cannot change those things. I also say, another BZ axiom is, no one is equal until everyone is equal.
Yes. And I say that all the time, and believe me, I get a lot of heat for it. But I tell people, I'm like, do you understand what the word equal means?
Apparently
equal
they don't.
Means the same as. Equal means that you're not special. So, all the special programs and things that you want, the so-called equality, is actually the opposite of equality. That's actually the opposite, because now you want to be treated differently. That's not equal. That's not the definition of equal.
No, that is not equal. And the other thing is, that was a heinous act. 19 people were injured. That I think it was Heather Heyer was killed when that arsehole decided he was going to drive his Dodge Challenger into a group of people. I said last night, and I don't mind saying it again, this guy should be hanged, injected, hung, however that state, Virginia, wants to handle that. I don't even know if Virginia has a death penalty.
Statue. There we go.
They may not even have a death penalty, but he needs to and will pay for his crime. That has to be completely separate. And I think the justice system is going to take that. They're going to take that ball and they're going to run with it. That said, though, you made the excellent point, is what if you gave a war and no one came? And then all the people showed up to listen to the rest of these fucktards talk about kill the Jews, kill blacks, we're being oppressed, etc. Some of the best things to do are to let folks speak for themselves, because they are their own best illustration of what not to do, to be, to think, etc.
Yes, and then we could hear exactly what they had to say with complete and total clarity. We would be able to quote them and yell from the mountaintops exactly what their little hateful mouths said. I mean, to me, that's the way you do that.
That's
really the way that gets done.
You could have had all the equality you wanted. You could have had all the speech you wanted. You could have had the demonstration that you wanted, and no one would have been injured or killed. However, I say that predicated upon this. Had they decided they weren't going to get a permit or attempt to acquire a permit for that, that young woman would not have died. Had Antifa not showed up in opposition of that, I suspect that young woman would not have died. Here's why. I think this guy that was driving the car...
I think you're right.
The guy that was driving the car didn't drive that car through those people immediately upon the onset of the Antifa folks. There was a pause between that occurred, and I'm sure he heard it, saw it, etc., then decided that it would be a wonderful thing for him to intervene with his automobile. Third, there's another aspect in this that I went sort of personally 210 over 190 on Tuesday. And it's a terrible precedent, and it's a terrible thing for law enforcement to have to do. Not have to do, they did, when they stand back. That grates on me after 41 years in law enforcement to have people watch violence, not just not intercede, but when they do intercede, they end up forcing two entirely disparate elements into each other. Are you kidding me?
I don't understand what method of law enforcement that is. Maybe you do.
I do. I have one very easy summary of it. I saw an example of it in San Jose. Oh, and I'll get back to that in a second. By the way, Melanie, we got 2 minutes before the top of the break. Folks, we're talking to Melanie Collette of Money Talk with Melanie, and she can be heard on the SHR Media Network. We will, in fact, get to that. We got 2 more minutes before the top of the break. And do you have time to hang over for the second question after the top of the hour break?
I don't. I'm sorry. I wish I did.
Okay.
Can I come back next week and talk about it?
Oh, hell yeah. Just let me know what day is good for you, and I would love to do it. We do, in fact, have about Thursday. Okay. We do, in fact, have about 2 minutes left. Those 2 minutes are yours. Take it away. Any kind of a summary that you'd care to make about Charlottesville or the state of that art.
Actually, I think what I want to talk about is the messaging of Donald Trump about that, him vacillating back and forth, and the cumulative message. And I'm not sure, and maybe you have a theory on this. I'm not sure why. I have a theory on why he did. It seemed that he was hesitant to point out specifically him being against that specific group when he has done so in the past, very specifically. My theory is that he didn't want to alienate a block of voters. That's my theory. And it's politics 101. Anybody who's ever been involved in any campaign knows that you don't alienate a vote. You just don't. And it doesn't really matter who it is. So that is my theory. I understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. That being said, he needs to stick to his message and stay on his message. But as far as the statues are concerned, it's a slippery slope, and we need to be especially concerned about sanitizing history. Other than that, I just want to plug my appearance on Sirius XM tomorrow night.
And there you go. That's another thing I want you to do. Take it and hit it.
What's that?
Go ahead. You bet. Hit it.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be on Sirius Patriot 125 tomorrow night from 9 to 12 Eastern Standard Time.
And on whose show?
No, I'm hosting Patriots Tonight on Sirius XM 125. I'm hosting a radio show. They will be calling. It's my third time hosting, so I'm really excited. They do guest host every now and then, and every 2 weeks, every other week for the last 6 weeks, I guess, I've been hosting on Friday night, and this is my third week.
Wonderful. Okay. Folks, we've been listening to Melanie Collette She has a show, Money Talk with Melanie, much more highly educated and intelligent than I shall ever be. And you can listen to her. And I also have on the air, immured in digital format, her promise to be back. And maybe we can chat about that other topic next Thursday. So, folks, we got to go to a break. And we're going to be right back. And then we're going to get into the buttery goodness of various forms of politics. Melanie, thank you ever so kindly, and good night.
Thank you for having me, PZ.
Folks, that was Melanie Collette. We're going to take a little bit of a break here, and it's as if nothing happened the past day or two or three, right? Absolutely nothing happened. Oh, yes, it did, and for all sorts, sundry of reasons.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I don't know why, I kind of like this little musical interlude. Sackhead Sean picked it out. He found it. And it provides kind of a nice and easy return back into the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Folks, you are listening to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon right here on the SHR Media Network. It's Thursday. I call it the aftermath. I quantify it as all the shite that I couldn't fit into the Tuesday show. And the sackheads were sufficiently oppressive to ensure that I did not mention or could not repeat on their show last night. But there are some similarities, and I'm going to point this. Actually, Sackhead Sean pointed this out to me, but I'm going to go there. And I've noticed that it's not been mentioned in the media. That's another story. I will get to that. So that's sort of a teaser. Hang on, because I've got a story where the Sackheads, were quite prescient last night. And it's already coming to fruition. Now, the reason I wanted to speak to the underground professor next Thursday is I want to talk with him about the First Amendment. And then Melanie and I are going to hack out what kind of time she can be on to talk about the second phase, the second question that I was going to ask her about a cashless society. Because she seemed to think, that I was surprised that it might be a bad thing. And I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I got the feeling that she thought it's a positive thing. So with this immediate conflict, apparent conflict right off the bat, now I really want to hear what she has to say about a potentially cashless society, because Europe already wants to go there. And so being the evil self that I am, I see some potentially very, very serious governmental issues. And they primarily deal with my little L coming out, my little libertarian, and emerging and kind of pushing me and saying, dude, perhaps in this instance you want to go big L on this particular issue. So we're going to talk to, with luck, we'll talk to Melanie about that. Now we're going to talk, I already set this up to speak to Dr. Michael Jones, the undergrad professor, about the First Amendment, because we all know what happened in Charlottesville this past weekend on Saturday. I think this is one element of a continuing system of leftists attempting to pull down the U.S. society. And I'm going to go tonight, this is the final hour, I'm going to go tonight through a series of stories that will lay out a pattern that I think you'll begin to clearly see establishing leftists want to turn this nation absolutely upside down. Barack Hussein Obama made no bones whatsoever saying he wanted to fundamentally change America, and in 8 years, he certainly gave it his best shot. His version of a fundamentally changed America and my version of a fundamentally changed America are two entirely separate things, and they have absolutely nothing to do with melanin count, but they do, in fact, have everything to do with philosophy. So let's just start at the start. I'm writing an article right now for the blog, which is going to go in depth with regard to Charlottesville. So I don't really think that I need to go into that here. Everyone that you're talking about, that you're listening to, is speaking about Charlottesville. Let's look a little bit beyond that, though. Let's look at some of the things that people prognosticated about the future, and let's look at some of the things that are already occurring today and have the past 3-4 days since Saturday. There's a new article that came out, and it's from the Washington Post, and the headline is, Silicon Valley escalates its war on white supremacy despite free speech concerns. Now, at first blush, you'd think, oh, okay, well, all right. This doesn't... How could anybody object to that? No one can object to that, right? The article says Silicon Valley significantly escalated its war on white supremacy this week, choking off the ability of hate groups to raise money online, removing them from internet search engines and preventing some sites from registering at all. The new moves go beyond censoring individual stories or posts. Tech companies such as Google, GoDaddy, and PayPal are now reversing their hands-off approach about content supported by their services and making it much more difficult for alt-right organizations to reach mass audiences. Note, alt-right, not alt-left. Stick with me on this. But the actions are also heightening concerns over how tech companies are becoming the arbiters of free speech. In other words, like George Bush said, the decision makers. I'm the decider-in-chief. Now it appears GoDaddy, Google, PayPal, they're moving into the realm of decider-in-chief. They are now installing themselves as gatekeepers about who gets in and who doesn't get in America, just in America at this point. And in response, right-wing technologists are building parallel digital services that cater to their own movements. It becomes an if-then situation. If this is going to occur, then expect a reaction. not unlike physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You're finding it out now. I'm attempting to make the point that this need not have occurred, but it's occurred. It's here. First, you get Gab.ai. Gab came in. For those of you who don't know what Gab.ai is, it's a social network, not unlike Twitter, where you have a limited number, although more. You have a limited number of characters in which to make some kind of a statement. So it's similar to Twitter, but not exactly. Its interface, to me, is clunky. It's difficult to maneuver around. I'm still in Twitter because, quite frankly, I'm a technological fucktard, just like Clint, except I'm actually more facile than Clint. Clint, I hope you're not listening. And I can get around in Twitter a lot easier than I can in Gab. But basically, Gab is sort of the right-leaning or libertarian, maybe that's a better appellation. It's a more libertarian aspect, a social model, kind of Twitter-based. You can add videos, you can add photos, make statements, repeat them, etc. Similar to Twitter. They call it a network for promoting free speech. It was founded, I think it was just last year, as a matter of fact. This is really new. By Silicon Valley engineers who decided that they felt that they were alienated by all of Silicon Valley's highly left-leaning type liberalism. Now, you may not know this. I happen to, and I'm going to make mention of it here. There's another sort of a Wikipedia for the right called Infogalactic. And depending on your mood or your swings, some people call that a medium to right-leaning site to counter the left-leaning sites. And, of course, the left have said, oh, that's evil. It's an alt-right site. Go there yourself. Don't take anyone's word for it. Go there yourself and see what you think. There is, there are crowdfunding sources like Hatreon. There's WeSearcher, which is they have got a funky spelling for WeSearcher, and WeSearcher. There we go. That's what it was. That was created to raise money for the engineer in Google. He was on Tucker Carlson's show earlier this week. He's a really highly educated white dude. He's an engineer, and he worked past tense for Google, and he was fired after he deigned to question Google's diversity policy, and I say that with air quotes, diversity policy. So he's out the door. So that it's coming to, well, we're coming to another crash, so to speak. It's interesting that Gab AI said, if there needs to be two versions of the internet, then so be it. And the company spokesman, who has a name that I don't know if I can pronounce, Utsav Sanduja, later warned of a revolt in Silicon Valley against the way tech companies are trying to control the national debate, which is very interesting because if you don't know Silicon Valley, if you haven't been there recently, and I have, I went there for another reason, but I went there specifically to San Jose and then further over to Silicon Valley itself. When you watch people on the streets in Silicon Valley, and you may or may not know this, you don't see very many Caucasoid faces. You see a lot of Asian faces. You see a lot of Indian faces. You see a lot of black faces, Hispanic faces. Almost invariably, it appears to me, 80% young, very young folks. And it's pretty clear because it's an affluent area. Trust me, it's affluent. You've got nothing but Porsches and Beamers and Mercedes and Audis rolling along all over the place. But it's interesting that folks in Silicon Valley itself are starting to say, wait, we think that perhaps you're pushing this thing way too far. It said that, YouTube and Twitter and Facebook have more power right now than the government. And I want you to think about that for a second and ask yourself, is it true? Who controls the medium? You have a message, and if you haven't read The Medium is the Message by Marshall McLuhan from the 70s, you obviously should. And the other book by Alvin Toffler, which is another wonderful book back then. That was required reading if you were a leftist like me from the 60s and 70s. But you have to ask yourself this question. Yes, the first thing that in rebuttal, folks will say, okay, but Google, GoDaddy, Twitter, etc., they're private companies. Okay, yes, they are. Let me know any other companies that have the silicon grasp, the net across the globe that any other company has. They're talking about in the mid-1800s up to the early 1900s, fat establishment Caucasoids owned a lot of property, owned the Central Pacific Railroad, the Southern Pacific Railroad, the Southern Pacific Railroad under the Big Five, expanded, and at one point it was called the octopus because the octopus, Southern Pacific, had its tentacles out in so many other business aspects as well. Tell you what, that octopus doesn't hold the most minute of candles to the power possessed by a Google. And you know it as well as I. So, censorship of hate speech? Well, that brings you up to another very important question. What is hate speech? And moreover, who determines what is hate speech? We spoke to Melanie Collette. She said the Confederate statues don't bother her because she walks right on by, and she doesn't have time to consider that crap. And I would concur. I would say that's eminently correct. When you have a company or a series of companies like Google that are so sufficiently strong and are so incredibly intertwined and want to become more so in terms of now the Internet of Things, and perhaps I should explain the Internet of Things, which is where we're going right now. The Internet of Things is companies. The nature of man is to push everything, push the envelope as much as it can possibly be pushed. We have the Internet now. We have Internet operability through lots and lots of things. They want to add the Internet to your toaster, the Internet to your refrigerator, the Internet to, well, it's already here, and lighting systems for your house. Looking at burglars walking up to your house. You've seen the commercials for all of that. The Internet of Things is essentially what leftists would consider democratizing everything so that everything is on an equal footing. And to whom do you give that power? There's an axiom, and it goes like this. Insert a word. Let's say, government. A government big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take away everything you have. Now, I used the word government. Let's go and write in the word Google. A Google big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take away everything you have, particularly in light of the fact when you are in the process of making everything that Google does not just a nice-to-have feature of your life, because the insertion, it's all about how you insert it, and it becomes inculcated into your day-to-day life. Boy, I did not expect to get off on this tangent, but in any event, I'm here. But they want it even more insinuated into every aspect of your life. What happens when one day Google decides, just throwing it out there, that like what we're seeing in this particular article in Silicon Valley, they're making a moral decision, and at first blush people say, ooh, moral decision, that's great. Go Silicon Valley. Go Google. GoDaddy. Twitter. And then all of a sudden, somehow, you become impacted. Well, it looks like this particular guy whose name I'm looking for, who was working for Google, who got fired from Google, because he did not toe the Google line and deigned to act. He was not threatening anyone. He actually deigned to ask a question. And to ask a question is such nonconformist activity that this company, this massive multi-billion-dollar company, they felt threatened. I can think of no other word for it. They felt threatened by that guy. That guy. That one guy threatened Google sufficiently, frightened them sufficiently, that like a bad pimple, he had to be popped and removed. Out of there. Yeah, absolutely out of there. Now, we know that GoDaddy, for example, completely deleted, there was a website of the white supremacists called Daily, Daily Stormer. And that's what it was. So they pulled that. Okay. And people are going, woohoo, great. That's outstanding. That's a moral decision. How moral will GoDaddy continue to be? How moral will Google continue to be? Wasn't it Google that said initially, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'll have to go back into chat, was it not Google that said fundamentally, do no harm? I think that was their initial motto, do no harm. It's changed now, has it not? Well, the short answer is yes. So, on its face, with this particular article, Silicon Valley escalates its war on white supremacy despite free speech concerns. Okay. The morality of various folks would say, okay, at first blush, good idea. But you have to consider and do what BZ calls the logical extension. And the logical extension is, okay, you opened that door. What happens when other people whose thoughts and philosophies are not entirely in keeping with yours? What happens when others walk through that door, gain that power of Google, and decide because they can, as is happening now, they're going to use their power to nudge things, just a bit of a nudge of things in a certain direction? I'd say that's something to consider. Now, here's another article. This is very interesting because we were just speaking to Melanie Collette, and I was going to mention this to her, but she only had a half hour because, number one, it's really damn-ass late on the East Coast, and she's talking from work. Sorry, Melanie, I hope I didn't get you in any trouble. But there's an article out now whose headline reads this. Paris Denard says, many liberals shut down black conservative speech with personal attacks. So now you're even striating, because philosophy über alles, right? You're striating now, folks, African Americans, and yeah, okay, maybe we'll listen to you if you're on the left, but well, if you lean to the right, we really don't want to speak to you very much. So this guy named Paris Denard is a CNN contributor, and he spoke to SiriusXM. Melanie was just talking about SiriusXM, a host by the name of Alex Marlow. And it was earlier today, as a matter of fact, except if you're on the West Coast, it's already tomorrow. Well, I'm getting confused about that. You know me in numbers. And he got into some heated debates on President Trump's statements about Charlottesville. And one of the things Paris Denard said was, we're not able, as black Republicans or black conservatives, we're not able to talk about the issues because what you see from many liberals and many liberal pundits is that they want to attack you personally. They want to question your character, he continued. They want to question your commitment to the community. In other words, maybe, is he possibly saying that some blacks are equal, but some blacks are more equal than others? And because of that, maybe it's time to consider their commitment to the community. Well, that's been going on for a while. What do you think about this? Now that I found another article, and this is out of the left coast. This is out of Hollywood. So you would expect this, would you not? But I want to know if you think this is true. And we're going to have to examine it. Here's an article headline that says, Oscar-winning La La Land director, stupid movie that I didn't see because it was all about dancing and I couldn't give a shite less about dancing movies. Damien Chazelle joins Twitter. Quote, only white men enjoy the privilege of free speech in America. Okay. Is that true? Academy Award-winning La La Land director Damien Chazelle joined Twitter Wednesday to add his voice to the chorus of other high-profile Hollywood personalities who have spoken out against President Donald Trump, okay, it's all about Trump, in recent days, and to urge his fans to donate to Black Lives Matter movements. In his first ever series of tweets on Wednesday, the 32-year-old director accused the Trump administration of openly endorsing Nazism and white supremacy, and insisting that anyone who is in a position of power who remains silent is complicit, and that only white people have actual freedom of speech. I could be really kind about this, but I'm going to give this article and this individual the consideration, the loving, concerned consideration by BZ that I believe he deserves. And that's it. Fuck you, Damien Chazelle. Okay, I'm done with that article. Here's another article that I found. Black Lives Matter activists float the criminalization of Confederate imagery. Now, what did I tell you about mankind in general? They take something and they run with it, and they push the envelope as far as humanly possible. Now, stop. I got about another minute to the break. Charlottesville occurred for a fundamental reason. Well, a couple of fundamental reasons. White supremacists are fucktards, and Antifa are equally fucktardish, and certainly equally violent. But wait, there's more. There's always more, isn't there? And perhaps if you want to find out what that more is, come right back. This is our final break, final segment. You are listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. Please don't go away.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
This is the last segment of the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Thursday, August 17th, year of our Lord 2017. There will never be another day like this. This day has now passed. I hope you've done what could possibly be considered to be your best, because you'll never be able to relive this day again. Wow, that sounds so desperately serious, doesn't it? I was about to make a point just before the break that Charlottesville is leading to something. And if you look at it with little blinders, like you'd put on a drudgery animal, a horse, a mule, keep blinders on so that you're focused only in one direction and you can't see what's going on around you. If you think that Charlottesville was just about race, you couldn't be more wrong. It's about a much more expanded universe, because it's really about control and power, which leads to money. They're in the control and power phase right now, trying to attempt to take control and take power on the left. Do not doubt me about this. I have article after article. I've only got another half hour left. I have so many instances and so many articles and examples of just this particular headline. Black Lives Matter activists float criminalization of Confederate imagery. So what they're saying is this: some radical progressives go beyond statutes, suggest a total ban on Southern Civil War memorabilia. Oh, I didn't see this coming, BZ. Did you? Are you kidding me? In the aftermath of violence at a white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, progressive activists nationwide have demanded and in some cases illegally carried out the tearing down and removal of statues and monuments to Confederate leaders and soldiers on public space. Now Black Lives Matter activists have gone even further, going so far as to call for a ban on all Confederate imagery, even in private possession. There you go. Bingo. Finally. Now the curtain is starting to be pulled aside. It's like the Wizard of Oz. There's a lot of stuff going back there. No one wants to let you see, except they just let you see a little bit now, because this is the goal. What did I say? Power control. Power control. Imagery, Confederate imagery, is so offensive, so brain-glazingly stultifying that common American, any human brain, can't conceive of the offense that an image provides to people. So they need to be removed, number one, and not just, not just in public. Finally, they're fucking honest. Even in private possession. They don't want public control. They want private control. Where did they get this idea? Antifa, considering your humble beginnings, where did you get this idea? Well, let me tell you. Germany's post-war laws banning any and all Nazi imagery. Black Lives Matter activists on Twitter said, that's a great idea. Whose time has come? Let's adopt that idea for Black Lives Matter. After World War II, Germany outlawed the Nazis, their symbols, salutes, and their flags. All Confederate flags and statue and groups should be illegal, said a tweet from a Black Lives Matter account. The fact that the Confederate flag and statues permeate the South is evidence that white supremacy was never overthrown in the United States. Everything should be illegal, and it should be taken from all groups and all individuals. But wait, there's more. Wait until you get, I might have to shift my articles around a little bit, and then play you two audio cuts that, oh my God, you've got to listen to, because they are at such polar, incredible opposites. Don't know if you're familiar with the Vice channel. History Channel on Dish is on 120. The Vice channel is on 121. I'm not sure why I'm giving them a promo, but it's a leftist, young leftist leaning bent channel. And they also have a show that's on HBO. Now that you know a little bit about the background of Vice, the channel, Vice, here's an article, headline, Vice editor, quote, let's blow up Mount Rushmore. And again, you didn't see this coming? It's the if-then, it's the quintessential if-then equation. And the nature of man to push. Top of my blog, I am Pushback. I exist to provide this information to you because I am not the American media maggots. I am the anti-American media maggots. There's information here that I want you to hear and see and know about. Corporate-owned Vice magazine posted an article urging let's blow up Mount Rushmore, which called for Americans' politics, culture, and history to be purified by political fire. Let's take with us the righteous ideas and beliefs and leave everything else on the pyre, says the article about Rushmore by William Cooper, who is a senior editor at Vice.com. I gave him another plug. Good on me, eh? The media company is part owned by Rupert Murdoch's 21st Century Fox and A&E Networks, mostly by A&E Networks, which is fully owned by Hearst Communications and Disney ABC. More than ever, this is a quote, more than ever, old monuments to famous white American men are being threatened because the only way we can help America fulfill a promise is by shedding the faith and facing the truth. As long as we allow these men to be cults of personality who exist beyond reproach, we're never going to be able to see them for all the good and all of their evil. Let's get rid of Mount Rushmore. Okay, it's in here somewhere. There's some things about Sackhead Sean. Here it is. Oh, you guys are going to love this. Sackhead Sean, last night, we were talking on the Sackheads radio show. Myself, Sackhead Sean, and Sackheads Clint. And I think it was Sackheads Clint, as a matter of fact, who said, well, what would happen? And I took that and ran. What would happen if one day in the U.S. Capitol, Antifa, or elements like Antifa, just decided that they, in mass, were going to swarm the U.S. Capitol, hold people hostage, etc.? What would stop people from doing that? And then on Sackheads, of course, no one said ha ha ha, because we know that, hey, something like that can happen. Well, hold up on that car wash, ladies and gentlemen, because Sackhead Sean sent me this article from cnsnews.com. Happening today. Protesters storm government building, burn county flag, hoist Antifa flag. It's fucking here. Leftist Antifa protesters stormed a county government building in Minnesota, seized and burned the county flag, then replaced it with an Antifa flag. That occurred back on Monday. Now, this article was just printed today. After left-wing protesters marched through downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota, in response to last weekend's demonstrations in Charlottesville, Virginia, they hoisted the flag of the violent left-wing group Antifa, raising it in front of the county's government center. It's not just a rumor of this is going to happen. It's happening. The Hennepin County flag was swapped with Antifa's, a spokesman for the county confirmed to cnsnews.com. Stop. Have you seen or heard of this situation, this article, covered by anyone else in the American media, maggots? And the immediate answer is not just no, but extra crispy no. No, you haven't. BZ. I wonder if that's purposeful. Hell yes, it is. cnsnews.com, another place to go that you might want to. Protesters gathered outside the Hennepin County Public Safety Facility. I do not know any specifics. I do not know at some point the Hennepin County flag was taken down, damaged, and the other flag went up, said the county's spokeswoman. This lasted for under 30 minutes, at which time we replaced the flag with a new one. We do not condone the actions taken. Monday, she continued. When asked whether the county flag was flying once again, she said yes, noting that it is my understanding they partially burned the county flag. It was no longer usable. To her knowledge, no arrests were made. Proud law enforcement. These are proud days for law enforcement. I already cooked off on that on Tuesday. I'm not going to do it 2 nights in a row. Jersey Joe, the reaver of common sense, spoke about this. Abraham Lincoln Monument torched in Chicago, an absolutely disgraceful act. Really? Do you think? Because who was Abraham Lincoln?
On Thursday, Chicago Alderman Ray Lopez posted a picture to his Facebook page of a vandalized bust of Abraham Lincoln. The bust of the 16th U.S. President Abraham Lincoln, which stands in Chicago's 15th Ward, was vandalized, suggesting a trend of vandals going against historical monuments. On his post, Lopez said that it was an absolute disgraceful act of vandalism. According to the Chicago Sun-Times, Lopez has accused President Donald Trump of encouraging such actions to damage and burn the bust of the U.S. president.
Did you just hear that? Donald Trump is encouraging these actions to vandalize the Lincoln bust. I think it's time for an audio cut. Let's see. I have about 15 minutes left. I've got to try to time these things to get in the more salient aspects of these. Here's an audio cut that you need to hear. And there's a phrase being spoken by a young black woman. And it's kind of difficult to hear at the beginning, but there is no mistaking the end.
To kill a white baby. The less white babies on this planet, the less of you we got, boo. The blood is on I hope they kill all the white babies. Kill them all right now. Yeah. Kill them. Kill your grandkids. Kill yourself. Coffin, bitch. Go lay in the coffin. Kill yourself. You. I rebuke these nuts that you ain't got.
Wow, that's cogent argument, isn't it? Now, that's from an alleged adult. And I told you I wanted to make a contrast, did I not? Did I not say that I had two audio cuts at the end of a spectrum that you're going to hear? But it's a spectrum that is in terms of maturity and in terms of age. It appeared to me in that video that woman was in her 20s or 30s. Now I want to have you hear 2 minutes and 12 seconds spoken by a young black male who, by the way, is 15 years old. And as my university professors used to say, let's compare and contrast.
Hi guys, I'm CJ Pearson, and I just wanted to take the time to talk about a little thing that we've been talking about a lot in the news recently, white supremacy. You know, I identify as a Republican. I'm a fervent supporter of Donald Trump, the President of the United States, and I am sick and tired of somehow, some way, white supremacy constantly being attributed to a creation of the Republican Party.
I should care to remind you, this young man is 15 years old.
Because that's just not the truth. You know, as a 15-year-old boy, I'm in high school right now. I have to take a thing called a U.S. history. I have to learn about the fact that these racist groups like the KKK and white nationalism, they weren't a creation of the modern-day Republican Party, but they were a creation of the Democratic Party.
Oh, stop. Oh, stop. No one better hear him say this, especially anyone in his class. Do you not think that this young man received an arseload of shite after this went out on the media? Because trust me, this went fervent all over the internet.
Democrats fought hard for people to own people who looked like me. They believed in things like separate but equal. They believed in the idea that people, because of the color of their skin, were less than people who were of white, of a white complexion.
This is what the left wants you not to do. They want you not to be educated like this young man. They want you to be sufficiently stupid that you think that Abraham Lincoln's statue deserves desecration because clearly he was against black people. That's what the left wants you to understand. And again, where I've been going all night since the second hour.
That is what the Democratic Party was founded on. The Republican Party was founded on the idea of freeing people from the chains that the Democrats had put on the wrist of people of color. That is what this party was built on. It wasn't built on white nationalism. It wasn't built on the KKK. But the media and the left, they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that. And I see all of these people continuously and constantly, again, attributing white supremacy to a creation of the Republican Party, to a creation of conservatism, and that just isn't the case. It is wrong, it is disingenuous, and at worst, it is revisionist history. It is revisionist history at its finest.
How does a 15-year-old young man, black as he is, how does he get to this stage in life where he is already, in terms of leftist eyes, he's already so terribly corrupted? Is there any bringing this young man back and salvaging him? Or do we have to send him in like a bad Michelin truck tire for regrooving?
This idea that somehow, some way that everyone, just because they have an R behind their name is a racist, is wrong. Is wrong, and it is historically inaccurate. And as a black Republican, I've got to tell you that it is not only disingenuous for the left to do this, but it is offensive to me. Offensive.
Now, compare and contrast the two. Oh my God. Now, he mentioned Donald Trump, and I think Jersey Joe mentioned Donald Trump earlier on his show. Jersey Joe starts at 6 p.m. Pacific, and I jump in at 8 p.m. Pacific. So Jersey Joe is on just before me. And from thehill.com, here's a Democrat that wants to introduce impeachment articles for Donald Trump over Charlottesville. Because that's apparently...
Steve Cohen, a Tennessee liberal, announced Thursday that he will introduce articles...
That's the hill, apparently, on which leftists wish to die. Oh, two hills. Impeachment, for any reason, by any means necessary. Jesus. And Russia. Either one of those two. Pick your topic right now with this particular congressman, Representative Steve Cohen, Democrat of Tennessee. This is the hill on which he wishes the Democrats to die.
Of impeachment against President Trump based on his defense of the white nationalists who participated in deadly protest marches in Charlottesville, Virginia over the weekend. Cohen's decision follows on the heels of similar efforts by Rep. Brad Sherman, who last month introduced his own articles of impeachment contending Trump obstructed justice amid the federal investigation into Russia's interference with the 2016 elections.
Stop just a second. What happened is that Cohen's cogent reasoning for this is that, here's his quote. Instead of unequivocally condemning hateful action by neo-Nazis, white nationalists, and Klansmen following a national tragedy, the president said there were very fine people on both sides. There are no good Nazis, there are no good Klansmen, Cohen said in a statement. And let's see, wasn't it Melanie Collette that said something about perspective on this and the relationship thereof? So he concludes, President Trump has failed the presidential test of moral leadership, perspective, tone deafness. Is Trump a racist? I think all you have to do is ask anyone on the left. They can give you a ready answer, can they?
Rep. Al Green is the only other Democrat to endorse Sherman's resolution. Democratic leaders have sought throughout the year to discourage such an aggressive strategy against Trump, fearing that it could undercut the ongoing Russia investigation and politicize those probes in ways that might damage Democrats in their districts.
Do they really want to go this direction? Do they really want to go there? Now, I want you to go quick like a bunny onto your favorite search engine because something came out today with the ACLJ. And what they discovered is, just as we knew there might be, were you aware that there might be leaks in the special counsel's office of Robert Mueller? Oh, is that not terrible in and of itself on its face? Yes, I think there is. Oddly enough, here's an article from NPR.com about sort of that same damn thing. Got about another 6 or 7 minutes. I am not going to go into overtime tonight. I think I can make all the points I need to make tonight. But the article from NPR says this, the headline, Robert Mueller may not be the savior the anti-Trump internet is hoping for. Really? And because it's NPR, I love the way these sentences are crafted. Because they're all crafted with a particular slant in mind. Your mind in mind. I'm going to have to play some Firesign Theater someday. I'll have to play Ralph Sparsport Motors. Maybe I'll do that next Tuesday. A lot of people, listen to this, a lot of people are counting on special counsel Robert Mueller. Anna Navarro, a Republican and frequent critic of Trump on cable news networks, beseeched him on Twitter to hurry the hell up and get to the bottom of any connections between the Trump campaign and Russia. The satirical website The Onion said he's gorging on chicken nuggets to get into the mind of President Trump. And T-shirts bearing the logo "It's Mueller Time" are on sale at Amazon and eBay. Is the Great White Hope perhaps not so hopeful? But the online community that's fervently depending, thank you, NPR, you're absolutely unbiased. The online community that's fervently depending on the 73-year-old former FBI director to shake up the Trump presidency may be in for a share of disappointment. Now, wait. Do again what I call the BZ's logical extension, because this is an attempt by left-wing media to set up an early excuse. Have I not said all along, because everything in D.C. leaks these days, even on the left. Everything leaks in D.C., and if there were a smidgen, that's a nice word, I like to use it occasionally, not too frequently. If there were a smidgen of truth to the thing about Russia, just like James Comey, someone would have gone, hello, Washington Post, hello, New York Times, have I got a salacious tidbit for you about Trump and Russia? Guess what? It's true. You haven't heard about that, though, have you? The special counsel and his team of 16 lawyers are working under a fairly broad mandate, do you think, from the Justice Department. Their task to uncover any links and or coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia, and to examine any other matters that might arise because of that investigation. Meaning, we can go any damn where we want. They have carte blanche to go anywhere and do anything. Leaks? Have you heard of any? Russia? Have you heard of any revelations? Again, NPR, consider the source. This is a setup. Bob Mueller understands, and I understand, the specific scope of the investigation, and so it's not a fishing expedition. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein told Fox News Sunday earlier this month. 3 months into the job, however, and I'm going to have to wrap this up. This is going to have to be the final paragraph, but it says it all. 3 months into the job, however, it's not clear what, if anything, investigators may uncover about the president, who has repeatedly denied any improper contracts or contacts with people in Russia and has called the special counsel probe a witch hunt. Oh, my God. Folks, trust me, to be continued. Come back Tuesday. Oh, by the way, in passing, finally, I should say this. I have scored an interview with a massive author, and I may reveal to you next week who I'm going to speak to. It's an author that you will recognize immediately and has sold millions of books. Folks, TTFN.
Monsieur has been locked.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Just like you always do. Folks, I have had one hell of a time tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I got to tell you, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. The Aftermath, Thursday, August 17th, the 2017, the Year of Our Lord edition. You want to contact me? You can contact me, bz at shrmedia.com. You guys have a great weekend. Thank you for listening. Thanks to Melanie. Thanks to Dr. Jones. God bless, folks. Take care. You be safe.
Quiet down now and get some sleep.
Get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.